Hello and welcome to the Mastermind, Body, and Spirit Show. I'm your host, Matt Belair. Today's guest was born and raised in Richmond, Virginia by a single mother and attended John Marshall High School. Along his journey, he has been homeless, suffered from drug addiction, has been shot 4 times in the chest at point-blank range, and left for dead. He was hospitalized and paralyzed from the neck down. Now he shares his struggles and experiences to try and inspire people and give hope to those dealing with their own struggles. Welcome to the show, Paris Robinson.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Brother, it's so good to have you on the show. I was talking to Mark England a couple weeks ago, and he just wrote me and he said, you have to have this guy on the show. So, what little I know about your experiences and story is pretty mind-blowing. So do you want to just catch the audience up to speed about a little bit about who you are and like how you got to where you are today? Because it is really, from what I know, pretty amazing.
Yeah, no problem. Like you said, I'm Paris Robinson. I was born and raised here in Richmond, Virginia. Grew up with a single mother. I have an older sibling. He's 10 years older than me. My story actually, I had a great childhood coming up. Like I had a mother that provided very well for me and my brother. She worked well. She installed good values and principles inside of us. Right. It was just when I got outside of the house, have my ideas. Because growing up, I always my heroes was like football players, like Emmitt Smith, and basketball players, like Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan and those type of guys. It's like when I got in high school, how my perception of life had changed, my ideas of life had changed. How I went from looking at those type of guys, as in football as role models, like Muhammad Ali, and I went to looking at movies of Scarface and King of New York and other like big time drug dealers that lived around my area. All right, so as me coming up, and like I say, my mother, my mother was single, so she would work, and I was what they call a latchkey kid. So when I was at home, I was the great mama's boy. I did, I stayed close to my mother. But when she was at work, I got to, venture through the neighborhoods and venture other parts of the city, while she wasn't there, and I got attracted to, like a certain lifestyle. For me coming up, I can't say that, I went without like eating or we didn't have lights. I've always had like my own bedroom. My mother fed me, and provided very well for me. But and I dressed real nice going to school. And in that time, I always considered myself like a ladies' man. I dress real nice. So I've never, I've had complaints about how I look, but for the most part, I got nice looking girlfriends and stuff. And I guess in that going to school early, when you mingle with different kids, that's when they start busing kids into the neighborhood, into different schools, you start seeing different lifestyles. You start seeing different culture. And that kind of attracted me. Well, I ain't gonna say kinda, it did attract me. And like I said, I would venture out and go and visit different neighborhoods and see different people. And after high school, it was during the time of the crack cocaine epidemic. After high school, when I had a lot of time on my hand, I always knew that I wasn't going to do no hard work. Like I always knew that I wasn't going to build buildings or dig ditches or and like I tip my hat off to the guys that does those type of work jobs. But I always knew that I wasn't going to be one of those. I always consider myself, looked at myself as being in an executive or being in boardrooms or, working inside. But the time that I was in school, I never put my best effort to get those type of jobs. All right. So when I got out of high school, I could say, like life had changed. Like when I was in high school, I thought I was the dude, right? I thought like life was going to be so marvelous, so spectacular. And I had these awesome dreams and, everything was going to flourish and, multiply. But life showed up, man, and hit me in the face for some shit that I wasn't expecting. And the funny thing, when I go to schools today, I see kids in there and they remind me so much of myself, right? Well, I thought that I knew everything in high school, right? But literally, I didn't have a clue to what was going on in life. Like I say, my mother always took care. She always provided for me, right? And when that kind of like stopped it abruptly, because once I got out of high school and she knew that I wasn't going to college, she was like, look, well, you grown now. I done my part. It's up to you. And so that's when, I've seen guys that I was in school with that was partaking in, selling drugs. And they was making a nice living out of it. They was getting their home, well, not homes, like apartments. They was getting cars. They was getting nice jewelry and clothes. And plus, they was getting nice looking girlfriends. And it kind of like bothered me at first, because at first it was me that was getting the girlfriends and stuff. And I was like, well, how can this guy? And they wasn't even attractive guys, right? And I was like, how is they getting all the girls now? And the guy was like, man, because they the ones that's got the material things now, right? And so I decided that I would get in that game, in that lifestyle. When I got in it, we first started off, I used to smoke marijuana and drink beer. I did that in high school. I did that a little bit in high school. But like I said, when I got out of high school, my priorities changed. My vision on life had changed. So me being out all day and in that lifestyle, we would start eventually like sniffing heroin. And that was the thing. It was a female actually that introduced me to heroin, and that went on for a while, but the lifestyle kept going, and I was eventually getting things and feeling myself a little bit, and the drug addiction in itself just like got out of control. It went from just doing it to because what I was told when I first done it was like, this girl, she had told me, she was like, I want somebody that got a dope hard, right, to have sex with me. And I didn't know what that was at the time. And I asked one of my friends, and they was telling me that heroin keep you harder for a longer period of time. Right. So I did it for the first time, and actually I liked it. But the thing about it was that once I'd done it for that time, and it impressed me and impressed her, right, I done it again. Right. And then I done it again, and then I done it again, and then the next day, that I was doing it on a regular basis now, and next day, I was hooked on it. And in the process of that, not only at first what I done it for was to keep me going, to keep me around. It took it away after a while, right? What it had done, it had, I would say, it gave me the pleasure at first. It tricked me. then it took it away after a while, because after a while, I didn't want to have sex anymore with, I just wanted to just do it. It just became like the heroin itself became my girlfriend. It became my comfort, it became like my favorite sweater or my favorite chair. And I would just sit in there. So I end up going to prison. I caught a cocaine charge. I end up going to prison, and I stayed in prison for 3.5 years. While I was in prison, I would, work out. I would, do whatever I had to do. I got high a little in prison, but I always worked on the physical, because I was like, when I go home, I want to be buff. I want to be big. I want to be muscular. I want the girls to see. I want to wow the girls when I take my shirt off. So I worked out a lot. And when I went to prison, the thing about it was a lot of the friends of people that I knew from around my way and from around other way, they was already in prison. So when I got there, it was like I just went to a reunion, because I knew everybody. I was kind of popular in my area. So I stayed involved with the same people. We always reminisced over old times, about when we used to do this and how it used to be. And, I never changed. I never tried to change like my thinking. I just was trying to change my physical appearance, right, to look like I was well, not look popular, but look like that I was I was the dude, right? So I end up going home after 3.5 years, and the neighborhood had changed. It wasn't the same neighborhood, and in 3.5 years, it had changed so fast. Right? New people had came in the area. What once was selling cocaine, they was now selling heroin, and heroin was a big seller in my neighborhood, right? So and I knew most of the guys that partaked in that lifestyle. And eventually coming out of the door, out of prison after doing 3.5 years, the very next day I was home, I was back in the game. I was saying that I was going to build myself up. I always thought that, I had the hustling ability to progress or to get so beyond where I thought, like, one day I was going to make so much money that I was going to be on this island, and I was going to have, like these Spanish speaking females walking around in bikinis, and, I'm sipping Patis or whatever, smoking cigars, right? But that never happened, right? That's just a lie that I told myself, and that not only did I tell myself, also like media, like films, right? That would tell me, music that would tell me that, I could be the one that get away, right? And it never dawned on me then that I would see people around me going to prison, going to jail, dying, right? Getting shot, overdosing. And it never dawned on me that it would be me. I always thought that I was going to be the one to get away. I always thought that I was smart enough, right? I wasn't going to do it like they done it. I was going to do it my way. And it was a lie that I bought into, right? Because I know now that two things that's guaranteed to come with that lifestyle. That's prison or death, right? You may escape death by going to prison. You may escape prison by getting killed, right? But those two things are guaranteed to happen. But I didn't see this at the time, because, like I said, I was still young. I still had that mentality that, you know, it wasn't going to be me. I wasn't going to be like that, you know. So during the time that I was home, a couple of years, you know.
Hey, I got a question. I just sorry to cut you off, but when you say the lifestyle, do you mean like just being addicted to drugs, and is it specifically? And you're saying heroin, right? I just pronounce it differently. I just want to make. I don't know that many drugs, so I just want to make sure it's that one.
Yeah.
So, are you saying just being addicted, or were you also selling too?
Yeah, I was selling too. And
Okay.
now, when I say that lifestyle, I don't mean just using. I mean being addicted to the lifestyle of getting fast money. You know,
Got
of
it.
the popularity of the cars, you know, the clothes, the jewelry, the females, you know, walking or going into somewhere and people know you, you know, and you feeling like, you know, you the president of the United Hood of America. You know, that's the lifestyle I'm talking about being addicted to, right? Being where people see you as a success, you know, because there's so many failures in the neighborhood, and everybody want to come up, right? But a lot of people don't want to put the work in to come up. So what they try to do, they try to stab you in the back, or they try to take what you have worked, what you say hard for. Because I ain't gonna lie, dealing drugs is hard work, man. You know, it might not seem like somebody just standing on the corner all day, or, you know, sitting in the house. But no, it is mentally hard work, because you have to be out there almost 24/7. You have to get up, and when somebody call you, or you have to go. You know, you got to look out for guys that's going to stick you up, right? Because there's a lot of robbery, and like I said, there's a lot of people that want to get what you have, and they don't care about no fame and all that. They coming for you. They just as hungry as you are. You have to worry about police, you know, because their job is to lock you up because you are doing wrong. Right? You know, so it's not like it's a steady 9 to 5. Somebody call you at 2 in the morning, you have to get that, because if you don't, then somebody else gonna get it, and then they're gonna become their customers because you're not available for when they need you. So, you know, it's not as, you know, I know I spent more energy doing that than I do working a 9 to 5 job. I wasted more energy. You know, that's why a lot of people look older, you know, because they waste so much energy doing nothing, right? Then when it was, if they was to just get a 9 to 5 job, you know, so, and that lifestyle plays a toll on you, you know, on your body. You know, it's not only just your body, but also your mind and your spirit, you know. So as I forgot where I was at, but as you know, like I said, when I came home from prison, you know, a lot of my friends and people, different people, was in our neighborhood, and they had moved over to selling heroin. I got involved in that real quick. End up getting, you have to excuse me because I have real bad nerve damage in my left side. So sometimes it'll hit, and I have to just let it go away. So yeah, I got involved in that, man, and you know, in that lifestyle comes certain things that you got to be ready for, like when you have shootouts, you have drug wars, you have neighborhood wars, you have people fighting for different positions in the neighborhood, and some instances came up I'm not going to be too specific about, but I end up one day coming early in the morning. Matter of fact, it was November the 1st. It's 20 years this month. Right? I was leaving out my house, going around the street. 2 guys, man, came from behind the bushes, and when I looked around, they were standing right there in front of me, and one of them shot me in my chest. And when I fell to the ground, he just stood over top of me, man, and just let 3 more off in me. And wow. Sometimes when I tell that story, I don't tell that story a lot. But when I tell it, and by being so close to that day, like today, I done got real emotional behind that because I don't tell it a lot, and it brings back that memory. But yeah, it stood over top of me, man, and let 3 more off in my chest. And I was on the side of between the street and the sidewalk in like the gutter. You ever seen well, I'm pretty sure you have, but you ever seen a dog that get hit by a car and in the street?
Well, just in like movies, and I saw some pretty rough dogs in Nepal, but never saw one hit by a car.
I mean, you ever seen a dog laying in the middle of the street after
Oh,
being hit by a car?
something close, just a sick dog, but not after getting hit by a car. No.
All right. Well, all I could think about when I got shot and I was laying in the gutter, laying in the street, I was like, God, please don't let me die like a dog in the street. Please don't let me die like a dog in the street. And after that had happened, a couple of my friends was riding down the street. They seen me. They picked me up and took me to the hospital. Right. I get to the hospital, and during this time, it was, I don't know if it was the Afghanistan or Iraq war, I don't know which one it was, but it was a surgeon leaving out of the hospital when I was coming in the hospital. And he is a surgeon that was in MCV VCU hospital that was giving the doctors there a new procedure on how to deal with gunshot wounds, on how to deal with trauma victims. Right? He's like this world-renowned trauma doctor. And when I was coming in, he was coming out because he had finished this session. And they had seen me, and he put me on the gurney. They ran me to the emergency room. He actually was the one that do the surgery on me. All right. So get there. I stayed in a coma for a while because at first they told my mother that I wouldn't stop bleeding. I was internally bleeding, right? And when they cut me open, they said just blood just gushed all over the place, just came out like a running river, and they couldn't stop the bleed, right? So they told my mother, was like, well, we can't stop the bleeding. We don't think he's gonna make it through the night. And my mother had told them, say, well, as long as y'all have done the best you can, the rest is up to him and God. Him and God gotta have that conversation. Y'all can't, y'all don't have that power to say what him and, the conversation gonna be between him and God. And eventually, I stopped bleeding. Like I say, that surgeon, he did the surgery on me, but it was said that I was gonna be paralyzed from my neck down. Right, because when I was in the hospital, I had a lot of complications. I had a lot. I caught pneumonia. They ended up having to take out my kidney, one of my kidneys, half my stomach, some of my lung. My pancreas had exploded. They had to take out my spleen, and plus it was they had to leave some bullets in because it was too close to my spine where they didn't want to cause more damage. Right. So and while I was in there, like I said, and then I end up catching a bed sore because they couldn't turn me, because by me staying on my back for so long, my butt ended up catching a sore on it. So that kept giving me infections. While I was in there, my stomach, the stitches that they had put in my stomach at the time, when they had moved me out of ICU, they moved me to what they call a PICU level. And that's a little bit, you can't go on the main floor, but you can get off an ICU unit. And then while I was in there, the stitches in my stomach had busted. Right? So they had to rush me back into the emergency room. They had to stitch them back up. I had a food well, I couldn't eat food, so they had to put a thing up down through my nose and go straight to my intestines, because they had to bypass my stomach because I couldn't put anything on my stomach at that time. And I was just laying there, man. I couldn't. Only thing I could move was my head. Wow. So eventually they let me go home, right? But I had to go home. I had to stay in the hospital bed. I still couldn't move anything. I would lay in the bed all day long, and all I could do was watch television. And all I saw was people on television living life. And it was so horrible for me, because by me not being able to move anything but my neck, I could see things that I thought at that time that I would never be able to do again. I had a son and I had a daughter. I thought that me and my daughter and my son would never have a relationship. I could never walk. I could never feel the sand or the grass in my toes again. I would never be in a relationship with a female, because I was incarcerated to this bed for life. Right? Wow. So I end up, like I said, I end up going home. I'm doing the same thing at home. And the thing about it was, when I got home, my mother, the whole time that she came to see me, and I was in the hospital for a while, for months, and she never told me that her cancer had came back. Right? She had cancer before in her mouth. She had to have surgery on it, and I don't know what you call it, but it had went away. But when I was in the hospital, her surgery came back, and it went up to her brain. So I'm laying in the bed in downstairs. She had turned the living room into my bed, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at TV, and her room was upstairs. I hear a blunk on the floor, right upstairs, just hit the floor, and I'm like, Mom, calling her, and she like, I fell, and I was like, what? So I had a physical therapist lady that would come like every other day to make sure, because like I said, I had to have on Pampers. Somebody had to wash me, somebody had to feed me, somebody had to change me, and she had she had to come that day. And when she got there, like an hour or two later, I told her, I said, I need you to go check on my mother. I think she's falling. So she go upstairs, and she ended up calling the ambulance. They brought my mother down the steps, and that was so man, it was so quick, because I couldn't move, and I couldn't get to help, my mother, one that provided for me all my life, and then when they was bringing her down in the stretcher down the steps, I looked over there and I seen them taking her out the door, and right there I knew that was going to be the last time that I got to see my mother live. I just had that feeling, because I didn't know. I know she had gotten sick, but I didn't know that the cancer had spread to her brain, right? And she went to the hospital. Like I said, I had an older brother. He's 10 years older than me, so we really never had like a bond. Like when I was 10, he was 20, and we were on, kicking it. He did his stints in prison and all. So it was up to him to, help me while my mother was in the hospital. And he had his own addiction to deal with. He had a crack addiction. And I ended up catching an infection while I was there. They had to take me back to the hospital. And I was in the hospital, and that's when they told me that, like a day or two, they came in there and they told me that my mom had passed. And I was like, wow. So I end up, they let me go from the hospital. You know, they took some nurses and stuff. They took me to the funeral. You know, I sat in there, man, and I cried so hard, man. I mean, I cried because I knew, you know, this was somebody that I had in my corner, right? Regardless of the situation, you know, regardless of whatever I went through, I knew that she always had my back. You know, I knew that she would always be there for me. And when that was taken away, I I lost it, man. You know, I went into a depression so deep. Right? I ended up going back into the hospital. And in the meantime, while I was in the hospital, my brother lost the house. Right? So while I was in the hospital, you know, I just lost my mother. You know, I just became paralyzed. Now I'm homeless. I have nowhere to go. I have nobody that going to make sure that I was okay. So I ended up staying in the hospital for a while. And they moved me to a nursing home. And I was in this nursing home. And man, I could remember, you know, like, and my shout out goes out to nurses that love to do what they do, you know, because they are marvelous. They are spectacular, man. But then you have some nurses that's not shit. You know, they just there for a job. You know, they just there to get paid, you know, and they treat you and you know it because you could tell how their attitude is as soon as they come through the room, you know. And like I say, shout out goes because I've had some great nurses too, right? And so, you know, I was sitting in this, man, I was sitting there in the same thing. I just lay there and I watched TV all day. And like I said, man, that's a horrible feeling to be, you have, that's all I could do, you know, is lay back and look at this TV on this wall and see life go on and people enjoying life and people doing things in life that I would never be able to do again, you know, and you know, I just gave up. I was like, man, you know what, man? You know, I like I said, I was going through depression. You know, I was feeling lonely. You know, I didn't see my life, you know, progressing from that spot, from that point on. I was like, this, you know, what did I do so wrong, you know, in life to be put in this situation, right? And it was just to the point, man, where I just gave up. You know, I wouldn't do no physical therapy. I wouldn't try. And but I always had like a tingle in my shoulders, right? It was like little needles was sticking in my shoulders. I could always feel that. But so one night, man, I was in there and I went to sleep, and I say like, I don't know, it might have been 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. It was like a voice had came to me, and it said that if you don't fight for your life, you are going to die. I did not raise you to not fight for your life. And I woke up and I was looking around. I was like, what the hell was that? And I'm looking around. And my mother, she used to smoke, and she was a supervisor where she worked at. So when she would like eat Hall's cough drops a lot because she didn't want people to smell like the smoke on her on her breath. And when I woke up and once I was like, what was that? What was that? I smelled Hall's cough drop. And I was like, wow. I said, was that my mother? Like, was that, you know, like, and for me, I'm not a religious person, but I am a very spiritual person. Right. And for me, that was like my spiritual awakening. Right. I sat there all night long and I tried to like make some sense out of this. I'm trying to, you know, my my finite thinking, right? I try to put this together, and I don't know what. I know the next morning, the nurse came in there, because every morning they would come in, they'd be like, you want to do physical therapy? I'd be like, nah, I don't want to do no physical therapy. Get out my room, get out my room. And that morning when the nurse came through there, she was like, you want to do some physical therapy? She was like, I don't know why I'm asking her ass for anyhow. I mean, she was, that's how she talked, but she was very loving and very caring, and I love that nurse to death. And I say, she said, I don't know why, because I don't know why I'm asking her hate for ass anyhow. I said, yeah, I want to do some physical therapy. And she turned around and looked at me. She was like, for real? I was like, yeah. She said, well, Angel slapped you on the ass this morning, woke you up. And I was like, I don't know, but I want to go in there. So they cleaned me up, they picked me out the bed, they set me in the chair, they strapped me to my chair, and off we went to physical therapy. So it was I guess it was like a room. It's not like a bicycle for your arms, where you do the bicycle motion. And they strapped my hand to this machine, and it was a physical therapist behind me that just moved my elbows and let the machine just move. And that's all we did, man, for probably about 2 weeks. That's all we done. But in the process of doing that, I could feel like the tingling was moving down a little bit, right, into my arms. So that kind of gave me inspiration to do more, right? I wanted to do more. So one day we come out of there, and I was like, you know what, because they still have to feed me. And so I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna start feeding myself. So they would put the tray in front of me, and they would scrap like a fork item to my hand, a spoon at the time. And they were like, let us feed you. And I was like, no, I'm gonna feed my damn self. I'm gonna feed myself. I'm gonna learn how to do it. So they used to put this big bib on me, because I would sit there, and I would just sit there, and I would just try to visualize my hand moving, my arm moving up to my face. And eventually, it started moving a little bit, and it started moving a little bit more, and it started moving a little bit more. And then I would get it up to my chest, and it would fall all over my clothes, right? And the nurses, they'll be like, let us feed you, let us feed you. I was like, no, because they had to clean it up, you know what I'm saying? And I say, man, after about 8-9 days of doing that and going to therapy, regularly, I was able to start moving my, my arms and moving it up to my mouth. And I started feeding myself, and like I said, I don't like Brussels sprouts. But that day that I ate them Brussels sprouts, man, for the very first time, that was the best Brussels sprouts I ever ate in my life, man. So I was like, wow, if I could do that, maybe I could do, because once I done that, my thing was, I'm gonna learn how to get out this bed by myself. I'm gonna learn, where they ain't gonna have to keep coming and picking me up, and put me in the chair. I'm gonna learn how to get out here. I'm gonna learn how to push the chair myself. And so we used to have an hour of physical therapy every morning, right? Then after that, they'll bring me back, they'll put me in the bed, and I would try to do my, I wouldn't call them sit-ups at the time. I was just trying to see how far I could get off the mat, right? How far I could get off the bed. So I would try to sit up, and I couldn't get off the mat at all at first. I would just move my head, just rock my head. And by me having all day to be there, that's all I did most of the day. I do that, fall asleep, wake up, do some more, fall asleep, wake up, do some more. And eventually, man, I started being able to do they're not sit-ups all the way, but crunches. I was being able to move up it seemed like it just kept going and going, and I was doing crunches, and the whole time I didn't know it because I wasn't doing for this. I got the best six-pack ever, right? And but I wasn't doing it for that. I was doing it for to try to be able to get up out the bed on my own. And then, you know, like my arm strength started coming slowly back. We'll leave out physical therapy. I tell them to put me on my stomach. And I started trying to do like little push-ups, like just being able to get up off of the mat on my own. And I got great arms for that, you know. And eventually that started coming into. I was able to like finally like sit up in the bed on my own. Right? I was able to finally learn how to get out of the bed. Right? Things that you take for granted every day. Just get up, get out of the bed and go do what you. I was finally able to get up out of the bed, get in the wheelchair. Right. I was finally able to put my own shirt on. Right. But I still had other problems. Right. So I end up like 18 months, man. I've done this, and it probably was more than that, but I know exactly it was 18 months. I was laying in the bed, and I had woke up. One morning I woke up and I felt like I had to use the bathroom. Right. And I never had that feeling in like 2 years. And I was like, what the hell? Do I gotta, urinate? And when I looked down, like I was like, man, I had a erection. I was hard. Right. And I was like, yes. I was like, yes, thank you, God. Right? I was like, if you can do this for me, then I should be able to do the rest. Because like I was young and I could never have pictured myself as being in a relationship with a female without that organ being alive. Right? Because like now I ain't gonna say that there aren't any females out there that aren't willing to do that, but I didn't want to put one through that. I didn't want to put myself through that of self-doubting somebody, because I'm not able to please them sexually, right? So I didn't want to do that, and it hurt me for it because I always, like I said, I consider myself like a ladies' man, and when that came about, I was like, wow. And the nurse, she came and she was like, what's wrong with you? I was like, man, I got to use the bathroom. And she was like, all right. I was like, but I ain't never had to use the bathroom in like 2 years. And she was like, for real? And I was like, yeah, look. And she was like, boy, put that away. I don't want to see that, right?
Oh man.
and the thing about it was, man, I was so happy, right? And I can remember that when I used to lay in the bed, I used to be like, cause I was still wearing like with the chucks or whatever they call them. They was Pampers, right? Big blue Pampers. Now I'm grown, I'm grown, man. So that did a lot for, also I couldn't get in a relationship with a female, and I'm still wearing Pampers. Right. And so I was telling, I said, man, I could remember when I used to lay in this bed and all I wanted to do one day was be able to buy me some underwear. Right. That was something that I had looked forward to, but never thought that I would be able to do again. Just go to the store and buy simple underwear. Right. And when we went to the store and I bought underwear for the first time, that was like one of the hugest accomplishments that I had done in my life for a long period of time. Where I was able to put on a simple pair of underwear again. Right? It done so much to my spirit. Right? I was like, yes, and I was telling a doctor about it at that time. I was like, see, these things you take for granted. Just to, you need a pair of underwear, you go to the store and you just get you a pair of underwear. But for me, that was like a lifetime accomplishment because I thought it was taken away from me. So I eventually, I got better, I got stronger, I defied all odds. Like I said, they said I would never get out of that bed again. I'm pushing myself around in the hospital. I'm going to therapy. I'm doing it on my own. I'm dressing myself. I'm feeding myself. I'm going outside. I'm going to shop again. To do laundry and eventually I end up. I got to the point where I got healthy enough that I end up leaving the hospital and was able to like get my own apartment. Now, mind you, the whole time that I was in the hospital, I'm working on the physical again. Like that's all I'm working on. I'm working on the physical. So when I get out of the hospital, I go back around the same people that I grew up with. I go back into the same area that I had gotten shot in. Right. And guess what? I get back into the same lifestyle that I left because I was only working on the physical. Right. I get back into the same lifestyle. I end up, man, catching a prison sentence. Right. I end up going to prison. I went to federal prison, for a long period of time. Way in Texas, man. And I'm from Virginia. I don't know nobody in Texas. Heard a lot about Texas, didn't like what I hear, and I didn't really want to go. And so I ended up, staying in Texas for a while. Met some guys in there that was in wheelchairs too. We had, we hung together, we slept together, we cried together. We bonded because we all had something in common, and that was the wheelchair. And I felt comfortable talking to them about my life situations, and they felt comfortable talking to me about, even if it was just relationships, because it was more like they had history of that, so they could understand me instead of like book knowledge of that, so we could relate to each other better. I ended up doing my long stints in them, and I came home. Right. We worked out together in there. Right. So I'm still working on the physical. Right. End up coming home. I was home for 4 months. Right. After doing 8.5 years, I was home for 4 months. I can remember going over one of my friends' houses and getting some heroin. And when I came back, next thing I knew, I was in the back of an ambulance. Right. And they were saying, "Welcome back." And I was like, "Welcome back? Well, where'd I go?" It was like, "You had died." And I was like, "What?" It's like, "Yeah, you overdosed." And I was like, "What?" I was like, so they sent me to the hospital. Right. I'm in the hospital. And while I'm in there, now I'm afraid, right? Because I've like had my experience with death, but I ain't never wanted to like kill myself, right? And like I said, when it started off in the beginning, I never thought that I would end up in this position. It was fun in the beginning, right? That's how it introduced itself. Yeah, we're gonna have a good time, we're gonna party, and then but it got to the point now it was killing me. So I ended up going into a drug rehab program, right? It's the Healing Place down here in Richmond, Virginia. And it's an intense 69-month program. But while I was in there, I was on federal probation. So I ended up getting violated. So I had to go back to prison. I was on the home 4 months, right? I had to go back to prison, right? And do another year on the violation, right? So while I'm in prison, I'm telling myself, I said, man, you gotta change. You gotta change. If you don't change, you know, you're gonna die. You're gonna kill yourself. And all the work that you've done is gonna be for nothing. Right? I just kept telling myself, I gotta do something different. I got to do something different. You know, I don't know what it is, but I got to do something different. So I would try to everything, man. I would go to Christian churches. I would go to I would do the Nation of Islam. I would do the Sunni Islam. I would do the 5%er. I would go to what's the name of the people? The Jehovah's Witnesses. I was trying to find like some type of connection, man, something to do different than what I've been doing. And I think I was in there for like 8 months. I had, cause on a year you do 10.5 months, you go home. And I was in there and I was laying on my bunk and I was like, man, I gotta do something different, you know. So while I was in there, I could remember I was laying on the bunk and I was in Kentucky at this time. And I was thinking, you know, I was wide awake, but my mind was all the way back in Richmond, Virginia. And a friend of mine, he came to me, he was like, man, wake up, man, wake up, come on back, you way out there. And I was like, yeah. I said, man, I was just thinking, man. I said, man, I thought, I was imagining that I was way back in Richmond, Virginia. And he was like, yeah, come on back, man. And it hit me. I was like, you know what? Even though they got me physically in a box, right? You know, my imagination is so strong that even though I'm here physically, my mind and my spirit was way in Richmond. You know, and I was like, man, how that was deep, right? Because I never looked at imagination like that before. And I was like, well, how can I, put, because I'm trying to get a connection with God at this time, right? And I was like, so how can I put God in a box, right? If he's everything, if he's everywhere, how can I put something that I cannot never, because like I said with my friend, like, man, I can't think on everything. I can't think of every situation or every circumstance. How can I think on the level of a supreme being? So I was like, how can I put him in a box? Right? I was like, if I put him in a box, then I'm being somebody else doing the thinking for me. Right? And that's for me was the greatest sin of all, was not to be able to think for my damn self. Right? So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna use that as my imagination. Whatever I need him to be for that particular time, for that particular moment, that's what it's gonna be. It's gonna be the divine energy that I, connect myself with. Right? So and then, man, I'm telling you, man, I started reading and I started putting my own little interpretations instead of what somebody else might interpret it as for them to be. I started, and then it came to me, it was like, you know what? Every time you go home, you always say like, you gonna do you one more, and then that's gonna be it. You're gonna go on and, when I'm talking about one more, I'm talking about do one more party, do one more hit of dope, do one more drink, or whatever the case may be, and then you always end up right back here. So I end up writing the drug program that that they locked me up in. And I was like, man, I need to come back. I said, because I got to do something different. And if I don't, then I feel like that I'm going to die on the streets. And they was like, well, whenever you finish your sentence, you're welcome to come back here. So I end up going back there, man. And the whole time, like, I stayed there. It's a 9-month program. I stayed there for a year. I had already said, like, look, you got to do something different. You got to do something different. Then it hit me like, you're always looking for things on the outside of you to make you complete, right? So if you want to start doing something different, then I had to rewire how I thought, right? So my thinking had to change in order for my actions to change. So in order for my actions to change, that had to be an inside job for me, right? Like, won't no cars gonna fix it, won't no females gonna fix it, won't no jewelry, won't no money, won't none of that gonna fix me. I had to go inside, man, you know, and find out what motivates me, what drives me, who that I really am. All right. So in doing this, you know, like I said, my thinking changed. I stopped going around those other places. I stopped being with those other people. Right. I stopped worrying about how somebody else felt about me, you know, or how I looked towards somebody else, because it was about me now. All right. And I can remember, like, when I first started doing this, and I was in the program, I had to read a lot. So that means I had a lot of time by myself. And you know, I would like go out and I see certain people, and they'd be like, man, why don't you come on around such and such place? And I wanted to go around there so bad, right? Because it's lonely when you have to work on yourself, man. You know, sometimes you know, you want to hang out, you want to, you know, enjoy it, but you know, it get lonely sometimes. You know, and then when people see you trying to change, that's what they say. They was like, oh, you think you better than us now. You think you this or you that, you know, you didn't change. And after a while, you know, it played on me. But then after a while, I was like, you know what? They're right. I have changed. So I was like, you damn right, I changed. So that's good. That's not a bad thing. You know, at first I looked at it as being bad. Right? But then I was like, shit, I accomplished something. You know, I'm changing. You know, I'm evolving. That's what I'm supposed to do anyhow. You know, and you know, I was like, and doing this like internal work. Like I was able to get like some garbage that I had put in for so many years, right? You know, because I always had a voice to tell me when something wasn't right and when something was bad and when something was good. With, you know, when fear and all that kicked in, right? I always had that voice. But as the years came, it got smaller and smaller because I was putting stuff over top of it, like pride, you know, like ego, like not wanting you to think that I was scared to go and do this and do that. So, you know, then, you know, once I started like taking some of this trash out, you know, the voice started getting louder. I could hear it. Right? And so now I started, you know, like saying, maybe that my spiritual connection to a higher power, right, that I've been neglecting for years. Maybe I need to pay attention to this, right? And I was like, you know what? And like I said, in doing this internal, just trying to get some peace, you know, understanding. You know what I come to realize? You know, they're not gonna never understand me because I was doing this internal. I realized that I'm a lion, right? And I'm a lion, but I was hanging with hyenas, right? And by nature, hyenas and lions not supposed to hang together anyhow. Hyenas will never understand the shit that a lion do, right? Because hyenas don't think like lions think, right? And I was like, you know what? I don't know why I'm even worried about what they're thinking about me, you know? And I just, you know, that's all I done for that whole year. I just, you know, was like, you know, I focus on me. I focus on my thinking. I focus on like my spiritual connection with a divine being. You know, I got more in tune with, you know, like the universe, you know, and it was during like graduation when I was having to graduate from this place. And I'm gonna tell you how the universe works for me that I see. Right? When I was doing my graduation, Mark England, somebody had invited him to come, right, to a class or something, and he ended up showing up. I never knew him, never seen him before. He never knew me, never seen me before, and he actually was in the wrong place. Right, and he's sitting in there now at the graduation. Everybody had to do a speech, right? Then after the graduation, they give everybody like 2-3 minutes to get our spiel on what was going on. And I was the last one. And I did mines on Muhammad Ali. It was a picture on the wall, and I just told him like how when I was a little boy, how my favorite person in life was Muhammad Ali. You know, and it was not what he did inside of the ring. We all knew he was a great man inside of the ring, but what he did, you know, far as how he held firm to his spiritual conviction, you know, his principles, his moral values, and like how when, you know, when he was the champion of the world and they came in and they stripped him of his title, right? And how he lost friends and loved ones, and people called him like communist, and you know, people just, you know, like put him down, and how he still stood firm on what he believed in, and how he like retained it all back. You know, eventually, just because he stood on what his faith and what he believed to be truth, right? And I was, you know, I explained on that, and we ended up leaving out, and that was on a Friday. I left out that Friday, and I went away for the weekend. I came back, and one of the counselors that was there at Patis Work Center, she was like, you know, I've had a interesting conversation about you all weekend. And I was like, yeah. And you know, like I come from prisons and corners and shootouts and stuff. I was like, well, I know I ain't on no probation. You know, I know, you know, I was like, I know I ain't did nothing wrong. So who, you know, what y'all talking about me about? Like, so she was like, no, it wasn't. She was like, actually, it was good. Somebody want to meet you, right? And I was like, who? So she told me, she was like, it's this guy, you know, that was there at the time that you know, presented your thing, and he wanted to talk to you. So I ended up meeting Mark over thing of coffee. He was like, man, you know what? I was so impressed about what you said. You know, he was like, and you know, I go around and I speak. You know, I do, you know, public speaking. He was like, have you ever thought about doing public speaking? I was like, no, not really. You know, I knew though that one of the things that I used to say when I was in the program, that I would be able to love to help people, you know, especially like with disabilities, right? How to, you know, like go in there and talk to them and motivate them, you know, and inspire them, because I've been there. You know, I might not have no letters or PhDs or masters and all that in it, but my experiences, right, in that, right, trumps all the letters you can put behind your name, right? You know, so I was, you know, I was told him like I wanted to talk like to at-risk youth or youth in general, right? Because I've been there, you know, and I was like, nah, but I never really. So he was like, won't you consider it and get back with me? So I was like, all right. And then he told me, he was like, because I wasn't even supposed to be there. You know, I was at the wrong place. He said, but I was there at the right time though. You know, and I was thinking about what he was saying. And I was like, you know what? I almost didn't complete that program because they had set me back. Right? And I had to go back for 3 months because some work that I didn't do. And I was getting ready to leave. I was getting ready to quit. But some just say, man, don't give up, man, because, you know, if you just stay in position, things are going to happen for you. So I stayed, right? And the reward of me staying and completing something that I hadn't completed nothing like that in forever, since high school, right? The reward that the universe gave me was my being in that room that day, man, you know, and hearing me and knowing that what my heart, like how hard that I tried to, you know, do something and change, and the universe rewarded me with that. That's how I see it, you know. You know, me and Mark, man, we like become like, he's like one of my best friends. You know, he helped me out a lot. You know, like he got me to this with you. He connected me with you. You know, he connected me with some other people. I have an event coming up on the 28th. I'm speaking to a room full of people, you know, living in excuses. You know, how excuses keep us sick if we continue to live in them. You know, so that's where I'm at, man. You know, I've been doing this now for like 2 years, right? You know, and man, I just, you know, like my outlook on life has changed. I never thought that I would be in the position that I'm in, like right now. I would never have thought that like a couple years ago. You know, I would never thought that, you know, I could, you know, because I'm still in a wheelchair, but I would never thought that I would be able to use this wheelchair as an asset or an avenue to help other people, you know, not just physically and as, you know, like that's dealing with addiction or dealing with disability and physical disability. I'm talking about people in general that's going through shit, you know, that's you know, like might be self-doubting themselves, you know, like caught in a situation where they ready to give up, you know, and I just, you know, try to use this as a vehicle to inspire somebody. Like my story I just gave, I don't get that story out a lot. You know, I don't do that because like sometimes it brings back emotions and it brings back feelings that I haven't felt in a while. You know, so yeah, I just try to, man, like now, man, just keep believing, keep on, you know, trying to stay connected with this universe, man. You know, just keep my spirituality up, man. I have my own saying about spirituality and religion. You know, I say that religion are for people that when they die, they are afraid to go to hell, right? Spirituality is for people that have already been through or still going through hell and trying to come up out of there. You know, so that's just how my look is, man, on life today.
Holy crap, man. That is by far the most insane story I have ever heard. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing all that. Holy shit. Oh my God. Like there's some in there. I'm just like, oh God. I'm just like nervous laughing. I'm like, how did you go back again? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, man.
That is intense. That is so intense, man. I have like 1,000 questions for you. Well, first of all, just just thanks for, you know, powering through and going through all that, and thanks for what you're doing now, and thanks for your willingness to share that story. That's, you know, that's intense. I guess the first thing that I'll ask you is kind of say a few things, and you can kind of share whatever you want, but it would be along the lines of, you know, what did you learn from that? You know, what were the most important things you learned? Maybe if you had advice for people who are suffering from addiction, they just can't change, you know, like, is there something that you could have told your younger self that would have helped you change? Do you really need to die twice? You know, like that advice and being stuck. And then the last thing I'll say is, like, I think a lot of people are struggling with suicide, that just bottom of the rung stuff. And then people are just like beating themselves up, and teens want to commit suicide over like Instagram and stupid shit. And but for their mind and that imagination, like when you found it was real, it's very strong for them and they can feel like hopeless and helpless. So I just kind of wanted to give that and see what you thought about that.
Okay. What I would like tell myself in the beginning is that if I had my mindset would be careful of the choices that you make. You know, be careful of decisions that you get into, because you don't get into something, right? You can make a choice that affect you for the rest of your life. You know, at 17 or 16 or 15, you can make choices that you're gonna have to live with for the rest of your life. Just like when I was 15 and I decided that I wanted to start selling drugs, right? The consequences that came with that, it might not have happened that day, but look at the road that I went through that affected my life from that day that I decided that I wanted to do that. So and when it comes to like, man, addiction, man, you know, drugs in itself, man, is like it has its own spirit, right? It has an evil spirit, and it come to you dressed up. It's a lie, but it come to you right, and what the thing it do, it captivate the five senses that we have physical, like our sight, our smell, our taste, our hearing, right, and our touch. It allures them. It presents itself so well dressed up, so friendly. But once you in the grips of it, once it gets you where it wanted, it would destroy you and everything around you. It'll take with everything that you once loved. It has a jealousy thing that it don't want nothing around you that care about you, right? It don't want you to care about yourself. Your whole mind is gonna always be on just to get this, just to get this, just to get this. Till it becomes an everyday constant struggle. And just be careful of the choices that you make. Be careful of what you think or what you might see to become like. It'll be like I said, like it'll be so attractive because that's the only way a lie gonna come for you to get to it. It gotta dress itself up. It gotta look presentable, right? It gotta come to you when like say, man, I'm put on this nice skirt and these high heels. And I'm because I know I'm coming to him. If it came to you with regular clothes on and bust up teeth and a black eye, you wouldn't accept it like that because you see it for what it is, and that you see it for as being a lie, right? But yeah, man, I'm just be careful of the choices that you make, and man, I'm gonna tell you, man, that drug treatment center I went to, it afforded me the opportunity to be able to, like I say, man, look at myself, like stop living in excuses, stop blaming, people, places, circumstances, situations for the shit that I was doing to myself. Right? I had to stop blaming, and I had to take, I had to be like, all right, I'm responsible for me. Right? I had to take full accountability for the things that I've done. I gotta find a way to redo them. Like I had to rewire my thinking, and that drug program gave me the opportunity to get away and be able to, because it's hard when you out in the world and you yourself about the same things that's going on, and you don't have time to, because you always constantly doing, always constantly moving. You really, people really don't have time for themselves, because they got bills to pay. They got children, they got school, they got work, they got whatever, football practice and soccer mom practices, and they don't have time for themselves. And that's what that program gave me the opportunity to take time for myself. Now, the suicide, man, that's wow, that's a hard piece, because it's real, and as youth, when we go through things, I know when I was young and I was going through high school, I thought that was, like I said, I thought that was the world, and it was hard for me to see like it ain't over, it's gonna get better. You got to give it time, because that was my life. My life was school. My life was built around school. So when things would happen, I was like, oh man, it's over. But man, you just gotta be patient, man. You gotta give yourself time, and just know that nobody in this world is extinct from not going through pain. Everybody feels pain. I don't care how much money you make or how you came up in this world, right? My pain might not be as great as your pain, but your pain is your pain. You know, you might never went through homelessness. You might never got shot, but that don't make my pain no greater than the pain that you went through. You know, just got, man, you know, a lot of times I know for me, man, when I was coming up, I always thought about like how other people viewed me, you know, and that played a lot, man. That played a lot on me. So that I really don't know too much about like how to say about suicide, because that's so real, you know, and I would hate to have to say something and offend somebody on that subject, right? You know, or somebody listen to what I had to say on that, because I have, you know, even though I went through the things that I went through, I don't know if I ever contemplated committing suicide, you know, because I use drugs as my avenue to not feel. Like when I felt a certain way, or when I didn't feel a certain way, I use drugs as my way out.
Right. Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate the honest answer. And what it makes me think about is just like escaping in different ways, right? And
Yeah,
so now that you're, I guess the question, you know, whether it's addiction, suicide, or people's struggles, I find that most people, like a very high percentage, I don't know what it is in the Western world, can be like either depressed or anxious or just going around, and they're generally unhappy. They're disconnected from spiritual or divine, or however you've, you know, found your connection. And I guess it would just be being on the other side. How do you create that connection with spirit or God? And what would you recommend for people who are just like, you know, my life, like I'll give you an example. Like my life is fine. And, you know, people here on the podcast and stuff. And the other day I was like, when I travel, I seem to tend to get into depressions for a little bit because I don't have anything settled. And I know, and then when I go through, I know I'm looking at all the stuff I don't have, right? I'm not looking at what I have. I'm looking at all I don't, but I live in Canada. I'm healthy. I'm lucky. And I can't get out of this freaking like depression of just like thinking about, well, if I had this, then I would be happy. And I know that's a trap. And so sometimes my own mind will lock me in, as lucky as I am, and I know it does it for other people. So I'm just curious if you have any suggestions for people, either, you know, just trying to create a connection with God in the way that you did, or spirit in the way that you did, or just feeling better, feeling happier and more content with what they have. Because I remember you saying, you know, putting on and buying underwear is a huge life goal. And, you know, if you get humbled to that, you start to recognize how lucky you are to see, to walk, to go to the grocery store, to clothe yourself, right? We take it all for granted. And if we took it away, we would know instantly, oh crap, we're not even seeing all the stuff we have. So I'm just curious if you could speak on that.
Yeah, I know, man. For me, right, you know how I got like most of my, cause like I went through depression, but how I got out of depression was because I stopped thinking about my damn self so much. Right? I found when I thought about the shit that I didn't have, or the shit that I did have, or what did make me happy, right? I was depressed like hell, right? But when I started trying to like help other people, I started trying to get in tune with the universe. I could see your struggles, right? And I could see your struggles. I'm like, damn, mine's not that bad. You know, I just took the world for what it was. You know, I'm not gonna have everything. I'm not supposed to be happy all the time. Right? That's not how life works. Right? We're gonna have struggles. Right? We have to realize even when we was first born, we struggled. Right? When we came out of our father's testicles, right, it was a million of us coming out there. Right? And it was only one that could make it to the egg. You know? We had to struggle, man. You know, it was a struggle in the beginning. Right? So man, I just stopped like basing my life on so much of what I thought other people's perception was supposed to be of it. Right? You know, I started like extending my services to other people. Right? I wanted to see other people happy. And when I'm seeing like I'm happy, when I'm making a situation better, that made me feel better. about myself, so I ain't have to look so like down on myself or what I didn't have. I couldn't realize I was all right with what I had. You know, I was just fine, and maybe it wasn't my time to have all this stuff that I'm thinking I'm supposed to have. Because if it was, I would have. That's just actual fact. If I was supposed to have something, I would have. Right? I'm not supposed to have it right now, but that's not saying that I'm not going to get it. Right? You know, and I had to understand too, man, and it took me a while, right? Because when I was going through all that stuff I was telling y'all I had to go through to get to where I'm at now, today I see it as my blessing, right? That was like the God of my understanding, right? Showing me grace and mercy, right? The grace that he allowed me to go through those things, right? And the mercy was that, you know, I'm still alive. And now I use that as a tool. And I was like, man, could not everybody have went through what I went through and come up on this end, right? So it's my duty, right, to not only show people that this can happen. You know, you can come out of your whatever it is you're going through. You know, so I have to look at that like a blessing to build me up for whatever tasks I got to take on. You know, and whatever it may be. You know, it may be just to help somebody else. I don't look at like my life now as I once did for like monetary things, monetary gain. You know, like I said, because none of that brought me peace, and I've had it. You know, but and I don't have as much as I had then now. But man, my life is so much fulfilled today. You know, and even in this wheelchair, you know, because I still go in hospitals, I still go in nursing homes, I go in institutions, and I speak to people, you know, and I let them know, man, you know, if you don't change the way you think, right, on a whole different, you have to rewire your brain all over, right? And if you don't change that, you know, your actions gonna stay the same. And it's a quote, man, that I love, man. Martin Luther King, right? They don't quote this one too regular, right? They don't put this one out. But he say that two of the most detrimental things that hinders a person's growth is the reoccurrence of dumbass thoughts and stupid ass ideas. He said, because once these dumbass thoughts and stupid ass ideas start to recur, we take these dumbass thoughts and stupid ass ideas as to be true. And once we take these dumbass thoughts and stupid ass ideas as to be true, they become our action. You know? And I, man, when I first heard that, I was like, wow, I've never heard him say that before. Right? And I did my research, and then he said it, and I was like, man, I was in a sale when I read that. Right? And it inspired me so much, man, that I would say, man, thank you, Martin Luther King, because now I too have a dream. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Wow. Well, I did not know that quote existed. It is going to be my new favorite Martin Luther King quote. I'll use from you, and I'll make sure that I give you the props and say, Paris told me. You know, like, I really appreciate the realness of your answers, right? You're just speaking from where you are. And, you know, when I've asked, you know, several people, how do we get out of depression and anxiety and things like that? And I've heard like it's getting out of your own, just like stop thinking about yourself, essentially, which makes sense. But just the way you put it, I don't know, for me, it was like a little bit deeper, just a little bit more honest. Like there's no like 4-step plan, you know, it's just like, stop thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, go do something for somebody. And I've kind of said that before when I'm trying to deduce, you know, what I believe an awakened person is. People will talk about a spiritual awakening or other. And one of those things is you stop thinking about what you can get, what you can acquire in the material, what you can experience for yourself, and what you can offer, what you can give, how you can help. And that can actually create lasting fulfillment. And I don't think you can do it on the acquisition side, as far as I know anyways. I know people try real hard. And I think that that's where most people are. Well, I wanted to ask you a little bit about just the experience of like dying twice, and not in a sense of just, I'll say in the sense of, you know, when you're going through those experiences, a lot of people, I think the quote you said about religion is really good. I just got back from the Parliament of World Religions in Toronto, and there was over 260 faiths there, right? And then I just imagined all this stuff about like being a kid and looking at like the way that I've kind of deduced it right now, and is like, okay, you've got God, which none of them know. You know, I'm there with the high levels of the Vatican, all these different religions. Nobody knows God. But then they got a prophet. So you got Jesus, Muhammad, you got all these different prophets. They apparently talk to God. Then you got a protocol. You got certain things you got to do. You got to pray this much. You got to do these things. You got to not do these things. And some of them you get a reward if you do the good thing. And then you get a real bad punishment if you do the bad thing. And that's kind of like systematizing this spiritual experience. So when I grew up a Christian, I kind of like let that go. And I know that there are good Christians. There's great people, but it's the institution for me, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I really saw the institution, and people would wear the collars, but that person is no more spiritual than you or me or anyone else just because of what they wear. And you probably have a more real connection with spirit and divine going through that, you know, crazy experience to bring you to this, like, this thing. I call it, you know, I was writing about the other day, it's like this impassable void. It's like the mind can't know what that is, whether it's God or universe or source. So I'm wondering if you could just share about like whatever you think your spiritual connection in, or if you had any like insights when like I don't know what you were thinking when you saw that happen. You're like, did you just have fear of like, I'm just going to die and we're about to find out, or like, what did you experience in those times?
I can't really all I know was up to that point I knew that I wasn't living like a righteous life, you know. So I knew that if there were a realness of hell, and if there were when you die, that's where you're going. I already knew that where I was going because my actions on this world was just that, you know. So like I say, the first thing came off my mouth or to my mind was, "Oh God, please don't let me die like a dog in the street." You know, that was the first thing I thought of. I My belief, man, this my belief for me, which what moves me and motivates me, is that and it says that, you know, we're all children of God, right? So as I'm being a child of God, then I've always had a connection with him, right? I've never needed no one to talk to me or to speak to God for me, right? I don't have to speak in Arabic. I don't have to pray a certain way. I don't have to go to, my body is the temple, right? Not the church. My body is the temple, right? My mind and my heart, right? So my connection with him is personal. Right? Nobody's no more well connected to God than I am, you know. And they can't tell me where he tell them, say, you my man, you gonna be my messenger. You gonna do this for me, right? Now we all have that connection. Right. And when I look at other people, like in their positions, right, man put them there, right? And but they can't speak no more to God than I can. He my father too, right? So I look at, you know, it's my responsibility to take control of my perception of God, right? How I perceive the universe, right? That's mine. Right? God gave me the ability to be able to think for myself. Right? Not what you may think or how you look at or consider spiritual or God to be. Right? And that's the greatest sin of all, somebody that can't think for themselves, that don't think for themselves. So for me, because he's given you the ability to be able to do that while we're not animals. You know. This man, I don't know. It's just a process that I went through. Like I've dealt with I've studied all different kinds of religion, you know, and we all have fault, you know, but I want to be responsible for my own spiritual connection. And if there is a hell, after life, then I want to be the one to take responsibility. That when I go, like, because of what I done, because what I thought, not because of somebody else, come in and all they want is fame and fortune, because we fall for that. We fall for the big churches and the great way of that they express or talk, or we fall for what I call spiritual masturbation, right? We fall for that, right? That quick fix, and we get in those situations and we go in there feeling one way, we get this quick fix, right? We feel this connection, and then we leave out, but ain't nothing changed. It's still the same. I'm still thinking the same way. I still got the same. So who's prospering off of this? My bills still ain't getting paid. Somebody else's bills getting paid from the misery that I'm going through, right? And no, we not gonna do that. No, I'm gonna pay my bill. No, that's just not how I look at it. That my connection with my spiritual being is personal, right? You have to be accountable for your own when the time comes for you to meet them. Sometimes people be going through hell, continue to go through hell, and they don't want to rewire how they think it because they've been caught or captured in a system for so long, since birth, that when you been going through this like system for so long, like, and you don't want to let go. And is it value to you? Is it really helping you in any way on life? And I ain't trying to wait till I die to get it. I want heaven while I'm here on earth. So that's just how I look at it.
Man, that's another, that's a really brilliant answer. I was writing, I think I fully agree. And you stated it very well in just saying the responsibility is your own to create your spiritual connection. In researching religions, and it's interesting because like a lot of the time I try to speak softly because I don't want to offend people. I know a lot of people are like Christian and Catholic and things like that. Sam Harris doesn't care. He just offends. But you also have to look at history. And you also have to, and I look at systems. And the fact of the matter is, like the Catholic Church, like my friend's a Native American elder, they massacred those people, right? And so what I've seen in history when you study religions is that you have an ideology, a spiritual ideology that goes along with the kings and queens in the army, because you also have to manipulate the hearts and the spirits. And the most powerful thing to do is scare the crap out of you when you're alive about, like, think about if you're going to try to manipulate people with no internet and they couldn't do research. You build this huge building and then you say, you sing these songs and you're all together. And it's like, if you don't follow this, when you die, not only is it rough here because you're in whatever age you're in and life is rough, you're going to burn in hell forever and ever and ever and ever. It's like a group of people came together and thought about the worst possible scenario that, like, well, what sounds like the worst? Like, and so people will do this when really what that robs people of. And again, like, I like to speak softly, but I feel very strongly about this. We need to look at history and facts, but it robs people of their own direct connection with God and spirit. And even in those books, it says that there's missing books in the Bible. If you're curious, Google the Council of Nicaea, and that's who created the Bible. And it can show you in that direction. Yeah. Wow.
Oh yeah. I've done my homework too now.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So I think that's important, that we talk about that. So you can be in there, but you also have to have this thing, because you don't need a guy in a robe or in a rabbi or whatever. They can be leaders in that, but it's not necessary to have your own connection. And that's where the mishap is. You don't need my podcast. You don't need any spiritual teacher, right? You on your own did it your own way, and you took your own responsibility. And for me, that is like a high level of spiritual mastery. And it also is challenging because you grow up like in your surroundings, like in your culture, whatever it is, like you, in your scenario, you were like back in it and then back in the culture, back in the streets. And then your friends are saying you've changed. Like, yeah, I did change, but it's hard to break away from your family, from your friends, from your city, from your cultural environment, right? You're basically ostracizing yourself.
Yeah.
And that's scary, you know?
Yeah, that's true, man. Because when you start doing things and you start seeing life different, people start to perceive you as being weird, because you're not going along with the norm anymore. Right? And a lot of times, like I say, when people have brought up in a system from birth, right, that's all that they know. And that's all that they choose to know. And they would say, like, this is how my mother and my grandmother or all that, this is what they believe, right? And sometimes when you present them with me, right, the only thing you can present me with is truth and with facts, right? And when I present them with truth or fact, right, they don't want to see it for what it is because they were so engulfed, right? Or they're so in belief of this lie that they don't want to let it go, right? Because to know that you've been believing in a lie for most of your life, that's hard, And so I don't like debate, I don't go into arguments when it comes to a person's belief. Because even for me, just because I believe something don't mean it's the truth. It's just my belief, right? But I don't try to. If that would work for you, then you work it. You're the one that's gonna have to at the end or wherever it may be, that's you're the one that's gonna have to deal with that. Not me. So religion, like politics, I stay out of that. That's your belief. Okay. This is how I believe. Now, if you want to have a conversation, we can have one. But I'm not coming in there trying to bash you with this, because I'm not gonna let my ego get in the way, because I try to practice empathy today, so.
Yeah. And, I kind of didn't see it going this way at the end, and it's okay because it's been on my mind since doing the Parliament of World Religions, because I got to, do a few videos on it. There's like over 200 different faiths there. And so I was able to kind of deduce where some were like religions, and that's where you get the consequence, where it's a reward or a punishment. Some of them were more like ideologies, like Buddhism. Buddhism's like, you can be whatever religion you want to be. This is just like principles for good living. But when I went to China, trained with the Shaolin monks, they had Buddhism. Not at all like the monks I meditated with. Totally different. They somehow took it and they created like this whole other thing, and they couldn't even talk about it. And I was like, whoa, this is not what I just came back from. So men manipulate an ideology, right? And you got the Eastern ones that are more like, it's an idea, you probably shouldn't kill your neighbor. You know what I mean? Like, these are suggestions that you can take. But what I found really challenging is I just imagine like taking a 5-year-old through there, right? It's like, okay, pick the right religion. Adults are doing that. But what I feel is that like it's almost preying. It's like sinister in the sense that it's preying on people's most primal fear, like you touched on, religion being people afraid of death. And they're looking for this connection, and they don't know where to go. But on your path and on many people's path, and myself included, I just went to different churches and I talked to all these spiritual people so I can learn, and not to say it's right or wrong, but to seek understanding, to seek my own connection, right? And then it's almost like they'll keep you at a level. I know some pretty well-connected people who do choose to go the religious route, but the most spiritual, like as far as I've ever met, is they don't really have like a set religion. It kind of goes beyond that. It empowers himself. And if you power something else, right, then I feel like you can only get to a certain level, so to speak. You know what I mean? It kind of keeps you in that container.
Yeah, because I'm like, how can I get advice from you? Like I say, if a supreme being that created this world, right, if a supreme being that knows everything, how can you give me on what a supreme being knows when you're only human yourself, right? Your mind is finite. Your mind is not infinite, you know what I'm saying? So you cannot think on the level, right, of a supreme being. You know, that's why I have to, for me, man, you know, like get my own connections. Like I said, I had to like just whatever I was looking outside for, right? You know, I had to just find it inside because it's that's where the connection is, right? We all are wired that way, you know, as human beings. Every last one of us are wired that way to have that connection, and you'll feel it because it's a feeling too. Because it's like I said, when some of my friends might come over, right, and be like, "Come on, man, let's go do this and do that." It was something that was like, "Don't go." Right? Don't go. Right? But I didn't listen to it. Like that was my connection. That's my connection. That's him telling me right there. Like, no, that's wrong. Don't do that. You know, you could get in trouble. You could get killed. You could hurt yourself. Right? But I ain't listen to it. And then when most of the time I didn't listen to it, when the consequences came, I'd be like, damn, you know, how did I get in this position? How did I? Because I ain't listened to it. It was right there. It was inside of me. All right. But that's why I don't have to go, you know, like outside and you know, I try not to go outside of me to look for peace. Right. You know, I can get it like inside me, like we were doing the breathing thing before, you know, we started. You know, just to breathe, you know, just to get in and just take a shower and just let water, right? Because our body's like 85% water anyhow. So we have a connection with water. Right? So just get in there, just, you know, I find when I just be in the shower, man, it just, let the shower just run over me. You know, I feel so much at peace, right? And like before this, I got in the shower, I took a shower, and man, I mean, it was like, oh yeah, you ready now? We're gonna have a good time on this show, and you know, some ideas that came through that I was gonna speak on and that I hadn't spoke of, you know, in a while. Like I said, like my story, you know. So we just have to be aware, man, of the universe, you know. Like my body is like my community, you know. I have a heart, I have a lung, I have a kidney, you know. They're different pieces, but they work as one to keep my body alive. So I have to keep those things going strong, you know, because my hands work different than my feet and my head work different than my stomach, right? But it's still one community, you know, and I just have to work on those and keep those strong and make sure that I put myself in a position where I can prosper.
Well, man, yep, I agree with all that, and I think it's very well put. We've been talking for a while. I want to ask you a couple more questions, and you can feel free to, you know, elaborate. But this has all been super, just beautiful, wonderful, and grounded, and mind blowing, and just like everything. So I want to kind of touch a little bit on just your thoughts on like kids and the community of the world. So, you know, you're coming up in the culture, and you're, you know, watching TV and doing different things. Music is a thing right now, I think, is a big contributor to why youth want to do this. What do you see from your perspective culturally about why people want to do these material things and even like gangs and stuff like that? What creates those things in that scenario? And then at the world at large, if you see anything there that we could correct as a species, you know, and be like, you know what, that's one of the major ones. I have my ideas, but I'd be curious to hear yours.
All right. Now, like my ideas, like, man, I can tell you, me and my girlfriend, we was having a conversation the other night, right? And I was telling her, we was talking about wars, right? And I was telling her, before there was a war on weapons of mass destruction, there was a war called weapons of mass deception, right? And the war of mass destruction, right, is actually the war of mass deception, because when you deceive a person, you convince them to believe a lie, right? You put a lie out there, and you convince, and once you convince them of this lie, and they take this lie to be true, that was the war of mass deception. Is actually the war of mass destruction. Now, when it comes to like music, movies, TV shows, I can remember, like when I was coming up, you had to be lyrically talented to get on the microphone, right? You had like your DJ, you had your MCs, and most of them, they spread messages like KRS-One, Public Enemy, MC Light, Queen Latifah, they spread messages of hope, like of encouragement of the struggle, and of building. And you didn't have a lot of rappers, like back in those days, because like I said, you had to be lyrically talented. And if you wasn't, they was booing you, and you weren't getting the mic, they were putting you off the stage. And then we also had TV shows, right? Like the Jeffersons, right? What else I would say? Good Times, the Cosby's. We had family-oriented TV shows that showed, like families getting along, going through struggles, everyday struggles, mom, pop, son, daughter, and all, but somehow, man, somewhere along the way, like it all got twisted, right? Now when I listen to like the hip hop of the day, that whole message is prostitution, selling drugs, going to prison, right? And just negative in general, right? And I look at, like, at the time when I started coming up, how the drug war had took on, right? How like a lot of drugs had became in our community, right? And guns, right? And it's we look at the TV today, like I said, what we had back then. Like now, you got Basketball Wives, you got Black Ink Crew, you got Love and Hip Hop, you got them like depicting, females on there as sex objects, right? As violent, right? And it's a war, but we don't see it because we are right in the middle of it, right? And it's a war, like I say, called self-destruction, right? Where if you look at it, they're I ain't gonna put that on. I ain't gonna say that, but TV has changed. One time, you couldn't show like men on the TV, kissing each other. You couldn't show like women on the TV, fondling each other, right? But today all that is accepted. Right? But if you understand who owns all the right or own all the television stations like CBS, NBC, ABC, Paramount, if you understand who own all the record industries, right, and companies, and why is there so many people out there that's like getting contracts to promote this stuff, right, to promote this foolishness, right, and it's getting younger and younger and younger and younger, right, and it's become more and more and more and more of these people that's doing this, right? What's the purpose of this, right? Why is it become so prevalent today that everywhere you look, that's what you see, that's what you hear, right? And when you keep hearing that, you keep seeing that, that becomes a part of your lifestyle, right? That's if you go to bed and that's what you listen to, and that's what you watch. That's why it's called programming, because it's programmed you to think this way, right? And when you start thinking this way about yourself, other people that see that thinks of you in that form, right? And when you in caught up in that, you don't see it as a you, because they just having fun. They're just doing what you do. I was young, and I wanted to have fun, but you don't understand that there's a force behind this that you don't see, right? And there's like picking you apart. Why you think that there's so many prisons being built daily? Why do you think that prison is on the stock market now? Prison has become a private industry now, right? There's more prisons being built than there's colleges in the world, and man, you just have to sit back and I know, like, for me, I had time and I have time, and I do a lot of investigation, and I see things for what they are, and I'm, like I say, some people consider me as being weird, right? Because when you caught up in that certain lifestyle, and you just doing the norm of what everybody else do, you don't see yourself as being wrong. You see it as somebody else that's coming from outside, right? That's trying to tell you that, no, that's not how it's supposed to be done, if you just take a look at it. But people don't want to take a look at it these days, right? Because they don't want to see like they're doing wrong. And the thing about it is that everybody today is out for, I'm going to get what I can get, and damn whoever that don't get that. You know what I'm saying? So, it's, and it's deep, man. That's just a whole nother, like, we can have a whole nother pod on that, man.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, I definitely agree with that. And I've done the research as well, too, on that. So I love hearing it from someone else. But yeah, just even the prison system being a private business. I didn't know that it was publicly traded, though. I have to look into that. That's insane, because if you have a business, the point is to have profits. So if you need profits, you need inmates. And so that should be, based on what law is actually for. If it were for helping people, then that would be illegal. That is if you think about natural law, planetary animals, humans, that should be illegal, because obviously it implies creating that scenario. There's natural law, and then there's maritime sea law. Because I did a little bit of law and security. I thought I wanted to be a cop because I wanted to help people, and it made more money than entrepreneurship coming out of college, which I should have done entrepreneurship. But so anyway, I just thought I was going to help people, but no, that didn't work. But I did learn that maritime sea laws is basically like based on, and someone's going to know a lot more than this about me, but law of the sea. And so you're in Canada, US, Europe, I think Australia, New Zealand, it's a shipping container receipt. And when you go see the judge, it has to do with a bill. It's always to do with some sort of bill. So you get a parking ticket, it's a transaction, law, land tax, this tax, like you look at Native Americans that were here. I've been studying a lot with the Native American elders. It's like, he said this, my friend, he said this like at the Parliament of World Religion. He's like, you don't own land. He's just like, you just hold a piece of paper that's backed by an army. Nobody can own land. It's absurd. But yeah, we don't want to kind of think to that next level, but yet we're in it, right? And so there's kind of levels to this. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, and I definitely agree. Well, what I want to ask you before we kind of close out, because it's been a little bit of while here, and then I appreciate it, is anything that you wish that I had asked, or that you want to elaborate, or that you want to talk about deeper, you feel free to go as long as you wish. And then the last question that I'll seed in there, if you didn't have any, was just, talking about living in excuses, keeping like, how excuses keep us sick. How do we get out of that? What's your recommendation to go beyond those?
Man, for me, I know, when I lived in my excuses, it kept me sick, right? But at the time, right, my thought was that if you had went through some of the shit that I went through, right, you would get high too, right? That was like one of my main excuses, right? If you had went through what I went through in life, I deserved to feel this way, But what I had to like realize was that as long as I made them excuses for myself, I was gonna stay stuck like right where I was at. I knew I couldn't prosper no more. You know, like I read a thing where it say excuses. Excuses are how it go? It say excuses. Excuses I forgot how it went. It'll come to me, right? But it had made a lot of sense when it came to like, all right, where I want to go, where I want to be, why, why am I using these excuses, to justify where I'm at today, right? So I knew that in order for me to be able to, like I say, like get along or move forward, I had to let those go. I had to take responsibility. I had to be accountable for my own actions, right? And the things that I wanted out of life, that was my responsibility. That was my job. And as long as I continue to point fingers or continue to try to make what I had done, and justify some of the things that I had done, that I was never gonna get to where I wanted to go. I knew that I was never going to be able to help not only myself, that I wouldn't be able to help nobody else, because I'm still living in these excuses, right? Like I say, and that's what I say,
I agree, man. Well, what it reminds me of is, again, when I was talking to, like, trying to deduce, like,
I found.
Okay, yeah, got
it. Excuses are tools of incompetence built by monuments of nothingness, and those who partake in them seldom ever partake in anything else.
That's epic. I'm glad you found
right?
that.
I was like, wow.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I agree. And yeah, what it made me think of is like another one of those things when I'm trying to think about, like, people will say they have an awakening experience, or they're woke, or whatever word people are using. One of them is the excuses is like taking responsibility for everything. If you don't take responsibility for every single thing, then you're going to be in a victim mode. Even if it's like random or like, God force, and you gotta accept that, or else you can't move forward. You can't respond to that situation. If you do it in victimhood or excuses, then you're kind of going to be stuck there, So it's a really important piece of the puzzle. Man, well, this has been a treat. Real privilege and an honor to talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing your story and everything that you did and making it through and doing what you're doing now, man. It's incredibly inspiring. Shout out to Mark England for connecting us and making this happen. But is there anything that you want to leave the listeners with, or anything you want to share? Do you have a way people can get a hold of you as well, or?
I have a web page coming. It's not up yet, but it's coming. But I am on Facebook, and I do have an email, probinson57 at caritasworks.com. I don't know if you might can put that up, because that's kind of long.
Yeah, I'll link it for you. What have I ever heard of that? Carrot Top what?
Yeah, I had got it, man. They had gave it to me when I was in the program I was telling you about. Right?
Oh, right.
I just went on and kept it,
Yeah.
So
I'll link it up for you.
All right. Yeah, I do have me and Mark actually putting together this website. We putting it together now, and that's about it, man. I just thank you, man, for allowing me to come on your show, be a part of this. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you coming on, bro. Well, we'll definitely be in touch. Just thanks for doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and I'm on Facebook at Paris Robinson.
Okay, man. We'll link that up too.
All right, and Instagram.
You're all over social media.
Yeah.
Okay, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Have an amazing day, and we'll definitely stay connected.
All right, bro. Peace.
Peace. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Bye.